I tasted the noodles to prove I wasn't a liar. Heat ripped through my stomach, and the floor came fast as the bowl shattered. And the woman who hated me smiled, while the man I worked for shouted my name like it could pull me back to life. If you walked in right then, would you see a maid trying to poison the boss's fiancée, or a desperate girl framed to look like a monster? Don't answer yet, hear me out, because the truth moves slower than rumor, and the only way to catch it is to start at the beginning. My name is Naomi, and for 2 years my whole world fit inside a laundry shop, a thin mat in the corner where I slept, a cup, a plate, a stack of other people's clothes that held the scent of their lives. Office shirts with promotions stitched into the collars, party dresses still soft with laughter, baby blankets that felt like hope. I worked quietly, I worked hard, and I told myself gratitude is a kind of roof, you know what I mean. Morning was steam, and the hiss of irons. Night was hangers clicking like coins I could never spend. And I was okay with that until the day I collided with a well-dressed storm in yellow lace. I stepped through this doorway with a plastic cup of water. She stepped in at the same time. The cup tipped a splash, hit her dress, and the way she looked at me could have turned water to fire. "Are you blind?" she snapped. "You dirty girl." I apologized the way a person begs when the ground under their life starts to crack. "Please, I'll clean it." "I'm sorry," but she pulled back like I was the stain marched into the office. And I heard the worst music, a cool voice telling my boss to choose his best customer or the girl who slept on the floor. He came out rubbing his forehead, couldn't meet my eyes, and told me I had to go. "If it were you, what would you have done?" Cry, beg, curse. I packed my small bag, stepped into the heat that didn't care who I was, and walked until the town grew quiet enough to hold my thoughts. An uncompleted building appeared like a half-finished prayer, no door, no windows, just concrete breathing dust. I crawled in, laid my bag on a slab, and told God that if sleep counted as food, I'd try to be full. Morning came with boots and voices. Men in helmets stopped short. "Who are you? What are you doing here?" I showed them my empty hands. "Please let me work. I'll carry blocks, mix cement, fetch water." They traded looks that said, "This is not a job for women," I said. "I'm stronger than I look. I can do it." And they shrugged the way people do when they've already seen too much and nothing surprises them. "Wait for the boss," they said. Work is a prayer too, and that week I prayed with my whole body. I carried blocks until my neck burned, mixed sand and cement until my fingers forgot softness, hauled water, until my legs learned the rhythm of a full bucket, the men joked. I was stronger than some of them. I smiled because sometimes a compliment is just disbelief that you exist. The 7th day, a tall man in a white shirt and safety boots arrived. The site owner, he watched me lift and haul, called the engineer over, asked who I was, heard the whole story, and frowned in a way that meant he had a heart and a rule book fighting inside his chest. "She shouldn't be doing this. It's dangerous," he said, and my stomach dropped by evening. The decision reached me. "It's for your own good," the engineer said, and those are the words people use when they don't know how to hold your pain. I moved to another empty shell of a house, hugged myself through the wind, asked God why. The lesson always comes before the meal, and got silence for an answer. Meanwhile, and I didn't know this then, the owner, Mr. Francis, stopped by the laundry, asked about a girl named Naomi, and learned that his own fiancée, Chinny, was the one who demanded I be fired over a splash of water on her dress. That detail sat in his chest like a stone. 2 nights later, a black SUV slowed beside me, headlights turning gravel into stars. "Naomi," a careful voice said. I leaned in and saw him at the wheel, worry sitting where a smile should be. "Where are you going at this hour?" "Nowhere," I said, "because that was the map of my life." "Get in," he said. And although every orphan learns not to trust sudden kindness, I got in. He drove in quiet, asked me to tell him everything. and when the road ended, it stopped at a mansion light and glass and carefully trimmed grass. The minute we stepped inside, she appeared, chinny, bright nails, perfect hair, eyes like razors. "Who is this?" she asked, already offended. "Her name is Naomi," he said evenly. "She'll be staying here, working here." She laughed without smiling. This girl in my house, and I held my small bag like a shield that wouldn't stop any arrows. He didn't flinch. It's not up for debate. My room had a soft bed and a window with curtains. I sat on the edge and told myself not to cry from the shock of comfort, because comfort can feel dangerous when you've trained your heart to survive on little. Let me be clear. Some people will starve you just to prove they can from the first morning. Chinny found reasons to dislike the way I swept, the way I breathed, the way my shadow fell on the floor when I reached for food, she said. "This house is not a free-for-all. If you're hungry, you should manage whatever you brought from outside." I had nothing, so I drank water slowly, so it felt like a meal. One evening, Mr. Francis came home early and found me staring at an empty plate in a kitchen that could have fed a small town. "Have you eaten?" he asked. I hesitated. "Because shame is heavy," I said. "No." He walked straight to the living room. "Why are you starving her?" he asked. She didn't look up from her phone. "I don't know what you're talking about." He didn't raise his voice, but the air tightened. "She is here to work, not to suffer that night." He made sure I ate, and I learned the sound of kindness. It's quiet. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't need applause. Days turned. I kept my head down, did my chores, greeted the house with small brightness. "Welcome home, how was your day?" I'd say. And he'd answer in full sentences like my question mattered. It changed something between us, not romance, not then just respect, and respect is the soil where better things grow. One afternoon, he came home with 2 bags, one for Chinny, one for me. Just a little something. He said inside mine was a simple dress, in a color that made my skin look like sunrise. My hands shook. "No one has ever given me a gift before." I whispered. Chinny watched from the doorway, quiet in a way that tasted like thunder. The next morning, he asked me to visit the building site. "Some of the guys miss you," he said. My smile surprised both of us. I ran to change, reached for the new dress, and froze. The closet held a space where beauty should have been. I walked out in an older dress. Instead, he noticed. "Why aren't you wearing the one I bought?" I looked at the floor. Chinny stood in the hallway, with her shoulders back and her gaze like a warning. "I'm saving it," I said. And the lie felt like a stone I had to carry all day. The truth hurt more because earlier she'd cornered me in the yard, snatched that dress from the hanger, and with a smile held it to a flame. "This is what happens when you forget your place," she said, as fabric turned to smoke. "Please don't," I begged. But mercy was not a language she spoke. I can still smell the thread burning. After the site visit, the temperature in the house kept dropping. Then, one afternoon, her voice came sugar-sweet. "Naomi, come sit. Let's start over," she said. And I wanted peace so badly, I mistook it for safety. "I'm not good at cooking. Could you make me some noodles?" I nodded, like a truce had finally arrived. Boiled water, added spice, tasted for salt. Carried the bowl to her lap. She looked down, then up, and screamed like a scene was starting. "You poisoned me. I saw you put something in there." Mr. Francis rushed in at the shout. "What's going on?" he asked, looking from her to me. She pointed like a prosecutor, tears ready to fall. "She's trying to kill me." Terror has weight, and it pressed every rib inside me. The only proof I had was the food itself, so I did the one reckless thing that seemed right. I ate a big spoonful while they watched. Heat slammed through my body, the room tilted, my knees buckled. He caught me before the tiles did, hospital lights. the beep of machines, his hand around mine like a promise he hadn't said out loud yet. "You're safe," he kept repeating, and I believed him before I knew why he waited for me to sip water, then said, "Stick around, because what happened next will blow your mind." And yeah, that happened. He checked the living room cameras, because the camera doesn't care about your reputation. It doesn't get tired. It doesn't pick sides. It showed her tipping a small packet, arranging her face, calling for him, waiting for me to walk into the trap. And here's the twist, the detail that ties the whole ugly bow. The woman who had me fired at the laundry was the same woman who tried to destroy me in that house, his fiancée, beginning to end. He stood up from the hospital chair like a decision had put bones back in his back, kissed my knuckles the way a brother might, and said, "Rest, I'll handle this." He went home, walked into the living room, and didn't dress it up. "Pack your things and leave," he told her. "If I call the police, you will be in real trouble." She stared at the floor, because people who gamble with other people's lives rarely believe the tape is rolling. She left with a suitcase and a silence I wish had arrived months earlier when he came back to the hospital. The relief in his face made me dizzy, not because I wanted anyone's downfall, but because for once the truth didn't need a lawyer. Recovery came like dawn, slow at first, then all at once, back at the mansion. The air felt new, like rain had come through and taken the dust with it. Mr. Francis told me he would enroll me back in school, that he'd handle the fees, that he believed in my future more than the world had so far. I cried because my body didn't know a better way to hold gratitude. "You're family now," he said. And I didn't know where to put a sentence like that, so I tucked it under my ribs and let it warm me from the inside. Weeks passed, strength returned. I walked with my head up. The house felt like a place where I existed, not a stage where I was always in someone else's way. One evening, he called me into the living room and patted the couch like we were old friends. "Naomi," he began, and the way he said my name made me sit straighter. "You've been through so much, and you are still kind." I shook my head because praise felt like wearing someone else's jacket. "I think I've fallen in love with you," he said, simple as water, and the room went quiet. I whispered out of habit, and he smiled. "Call me Francis." We both laughed because fear and joy sometimes sound the same. He told me to take my time, and I did. I also noticed something I wasn't expecting. Being believed felt more shocking to my body than being loved. A few months later, he stood facing me with a small velvet box, not kneeling. We aren't actors, just a man and a woman trying to be brave in the middle of their own lives. "I want you to be my wife," he said, and I wanted to ask the questions you're asking right now. Is it too soon? Will people talk? Am I just the story he tells himself to feel like a hero? But sometimes your spirit knows the difference between an escape and a home. "Yes," I said, and he pulled me into a hug that felt like arriving. Our wedding was small and honest, close friends, a few family members, a dress that didn't care about brand names, a vow that sounded like work and joy in equal measure, and the sound of people who knew us clapping with tears in their eyes. But a ring is not the end of a story. It's a door, and we walked through it to keep our promises. Francis kept his word about school. We filled out forms. I sat in classrooms with windows of light. I raised my hand without my voice shaking. I read books that didn't smell like other people's houses, and I passed exams like someone who remembered she was smart. Then we started a foundation. Small at first, a safe place for girls who sleep in shops and on floors and in uncompleted buildings. A place where the first gifts are not dresses but dignity food. You don't have to beg for a bed that is only yours. A mentor who says your name like it matters. We do the simple things well, and the simple things have a way of saving lives. Now let me say the part that satisfies and still stirs the pot. Because I know the internet, I know you, and I love how you think. Some people told me Francis should have pressed charges, that letting Chinny walk out with a suitcase wasn't justice, that a woman who frames a girl for poisoning deserves more than a door closing behind her. Others said it was mercy, that the public shame of being caught and expelled was enough, that the point wasn't revenge, but safety, that dragging it through court would have kept us trapped in the past. Both sides loved me loudly, both sides made me think, and I'm still thinking. So let me ask you, do you think that's fair, the way it ended, the choices we made? If it were you, would you have called the police? Would you have forgiven? Would you have said yes to that ring? Or would you have walked away to build a life with your own two hands and no one else's name attached to it? Is love, across a class line, a fairy tale, or just rare is a rescue, ever clean? Is power ever simple? Here's what it felt like inside my skin. Poverty can make a person disappear. Kindness can make them visible again. And love is not a handout. It's a daily decision to stand beside someone when the crowd changes its mind. Yeah, that happened. One more thing before I go, don't underestimate small acts. The cup of tea, the warm greeting, the decision to clean up someone else's mess. Without a speech. The dangerous moments mattered. The lies, the fire, the hospital room. But the gentle parts held the house together. And if you've ever been the person sleeping on a floor, or the person who forgot to notice the girl sleeping on the floor, I see you. I'm rooting for you, and I'm asking you to root for someone else too. Tell me where you're watching from. Tell me whether mercy or punishment makes the world safer. Tell me if you think we chose right or just chose survival. Drop your honest take in the comments. Share your own story if you've lived a piece of this, like the video. If you believe kindness outlasts status, hit subscribe so you don't miss the next story. And pass this along to the one person who needs to hear that their life is not over just because a door slammed in their face. The story doesn't end when the credits roll. It keeps going where your voice picks it up.